Just joined us. This is the press. We're reaching you live from KAFTAN's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. We'll go straight to analyzing the stories that we read out to you. And my guest on the show this morning is Dr. Mefor, who is a media consultant. Great to have you on the show again, sir.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Happy Good Friday.
Yeah, same here. Incidentally, I'm a Catholic.
Yeah.
A knighted Catholic at that. So it's a great day for us.
Oh, great,
yeah,
great.
For humanity.
So before we go straight to our headline for this morning, let's talk about Good Friday and then Easter.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people will say, we grew up with that. At some point, it became like an argument. Is it a myth or the truth that on Good Friday you're not supposed to eat any blooded animal?
No, it's one of the traditions of the church. And it's all intended to the reverence we have for the divinity, the salvific figure that saved mankind by sacrificing himself unto himself. Okay. Because you need to understand the mystery of salvation. Essentially, man fell through Adam and needed to be lifted up by another Adam. And because God tried many prophets to do that job, and they all failed, or the people rather did not take them seriously, God decided to send his own son. In other words, whereas other religions would say, God sent me, in Christianity, we can now say that God came. God came, himself. Okay. Because every other option failed. So that is the mystery. And there is no reverence you set aside to really reincarnate that feeling and make it have the kind of, aura, awe, and reverence. That's the word that it deserves. That would be too much. So Catholics particularly introduced the tradition of not eating meat on Good Friday.
Okay, so it's just from Catholics?
I don't know if other denominations of Christianity do that, but Catholics particularly, they are the ones that set out a whole week. They call the Holy Week. The Holy Week, to celebrate the Passion.
That's on Palm Sunday, yeah?
Yes, to celebrate the Palm Sunday is actually the triumphant entry of Jesus into Jerusalem, where the Passion all began, culminating ultimately in his crucifixion and then resurrection. It takes a deep spiritual understanding to unravel the myth behind it all. You don't look at it from philosophical perspective and hope to get anything out of it. Essentially, it's a reminder. We want to relive that experience because that's an event that took place over 2,000 years ago. We relive it every year as a constant reminder that this indeed happened and happened for us. And the question is, Christ keeps asking us in the Stations of the Cross that we do every Wednesday and Friday, which we will do the final one today, to begin the process that will culminate in the resurrection eventually. Christ is telling you, this I did for you. What have you done for me? It's simple. That's the mystery. And he says, don't look for me in distant places. I am all around you, in your kitchen, in your workplace, in school,
so are you saying
on the road.
Are you saying that it's not about me going to one high mountain to...
No, God is everywhere. That's the issue. You can go to a mountain and if that makes you feel the presence of God. But God is indeed everywhere. And you can, even going to church, is merely to help you, what Christ himself said, that iron, sharpens iron. And you are advised, by St. Paul, not to forsake the gathering of the brethren. So, you go to church to pray together, group prayer, it helps a lot. than just praying all by yourself. Yes, praying all by yourself is very important, but going to church is also very important.
So what will you now say to those people who say that, okay, I'm done with church, I just want to stay in my house?
It's a misguided understanding of the whole thing, and that they are looking at the priests. You know, all the priests are not the same. Don't forget, in the training of the priest, you have 4 components. You know, you have intellectual, you have moral, you have spiritual, you have philosophical, you have even the theology aspect of it. So being a priest does not entirely remove that your humanity, your upbringing. Okay. Don't forget, the seminary took over from your teenager age years. What your parents, your family, the peers did with you, a lot of it is still there. So some of the priests may not be as inspirational. You know, they may not be as inspiring as they should be. And that tends to drive some people away from the church. But are you in the church because of the priest? You're not in the church because of the priest. So for me, I go there, and if the priest is not inspiring me, it doesn't mean anything to me. I try to help myself in other ways. And in the Catholic Church, it's so organized in a way that no priest stays in a parish permanently. You know, 3-4 years they're out of there. So I will pray that one day you will go. So nobody should leave the church for any reason. Stay there.
Great.
You know, yes, you know, it's not a perfect place. Do you understand what I'm saying? Don't allow your inclination to perfection to drive you away from the church because people you see are not living up to expectations. Be the example that you want to see. That change, that personality, that genuine, true Christian that you want to see, be that. As you're doing so, you are evangelizing others. And you can't do that. You don't light the candle and put it under the bushel. You put it out there for people to see. Show the way, show the light. The people will find their way.
Most definitely.
So don't go away.
So just remember that there is a man in the man of God.
You know it, yes, there is. So don't, he's not perfect.
All right.
It's just a rule.
All right, I'm sure that someone has actually been rightly educated.
I pray so.
and enlightened in that.
I pray so.
All right, let's go straight to our headline for this morning. Quite a number of stories, but we'll stay on the one that is on all of the headline this morning. Punch newspaper says CBN raises capital base for mega banks to 500 billion naira. Cardoso gives banks 24 months to recapitalize, and then national lenders to raise 200 billion naira and others 50 billion naira. But if you go straight to the Nation's newspaper, they gave us the breakdown right there on the Nation. It says bank mergers likely as CBN directs 5 billion naira capital base. Apex Bank expect roadmap by April 30th. And then for the commercial banks with international authorization, they have 50 billion naira rather, their old capital to 500 billion. Then the ones with national authorization from 25 billion to 200 billion. Let's not go into all of that. But what are your thoughts in all of this? Some people say that, oh my God, that's like using a sledgehammer on your own people. Because I remember when it happened, one of the banks at I'm not going to mention name, but one of the ones that had national authorization during the 25 billion naira recapitalization. I remember one of them had to bring in one of these an investor in Nigeria to help them at least bring in that inflow. What are your thoughts on all of this? Are you seeing mergers and all of this? You
know, for me, it shouldn't be the number of banks. If you're using a bank app for transactions, you see the number of banks you have out there. They run into dozens, you know. And for me, it's better to have a few strong banks, a few of them.
Is that what you see here?
That's what I say, because when you talk about merger, it means that all the small banks will have to come together, you know, or they will fizzle out completely. So if you don't want to close shop completely, you join a platform where you surrender your identity and independence, and they form a part of a partnership under a new name, or you subsume yours under another bank altogether. What, you know, because a merger can take many forms, you know, but essentially you have two pathways. One is you have a number of banks that come together to form, a single bank, and or you have a bank that acquires other smaller banks, and then it becomes bigger. The kind of banking we have in Nigeria, for me, is not what banking ought to be. And that is the perspective that makes me to agree with Cardoso. One thing I say is that the traditional banking services that we ought to enjoy, that will ultimately power and fund the economy, is simply not there. I was looking at the first 10 blue chip industries or companies in Nigeria. And I was shocked to see that 7 out of that 10, the strongest firms you have in Nigeria, 7 out of that 10 are banks. There is something wrong with that. Do you understand that? You don't have your strong firms are not they are not manufacturing companies. They are not really providing real services to the economy. It is the banks. Do you understand? So something is not adding up. It's an indicator of a totally misaligned economy, disarticulated economy. Okay. That misalignment is what the CBN is partly trying to correct. But I believe they ought to go even further than this. Because,
really?
Yes, they have to. Because it's not just about financial base. The services will have to be clearly defined.
Okay. Because
what the banks do in Nigeria, they simply trade in currency. That's what they do. They simply trade in currency. They are not into long-term planning and funding of the economy. You can't go to the Nigerian banks now and ask for a loan that you will repay over a period of 10 to 20 years. Nobody is interested in that. They want quick fix. They want to sort of, they are more interested in things like LPO financing, that you have this contract 5 billion, and the maturity rate is just 2 weeks, 1 month. That's the kind of investment the banks want to see. And once they confirm that, they will pay, because they will know within 1 month they have added the 200 million profit to their kitty. But that is not, the money making is not the essential. It's not the fundamental reason why you have the banks.
But they're there for profit making, though.
No, you see, if they have corporate social responsibilities, for example. Yes, we are in a capitalist economy. Do you understand that? But the question is, are you just out there to trade in money, in currency? Go to central bank, acquire hard currencies, and trade them over the counter and make, what you call round tripping. The banks are championing it between themselves and the bureau de change that we have out there. That is what they do. And in the case of round tripping, all they do is to exploit the gap between the parallel market and the official window. Do you understand that? And all you need to have as qualification to become a billionaire using this gap is to know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody in the CBN. You get, you secure the dollar, the pound, and so on and so forth. You secure it, take it to bureau de change, and collect the difference in margin, and pay back the principal. So what have you added to the economy? You have added nothing. So the point I'm trying to make is that if indeed they want stronger banks, I agree, but strength in what? What is the strength for?
Not just financial.
Not because you see, when you talk about fiscal policies and monetary policies, the banks are on the monetary policy angle. They ought to be helping the CBN to fulfill that obligation. It's their job. The bank MDs, ought to be on the table with the CBN governor working to plug loopholes, working to ensure that the monetary policies work. And you know, monetary policy has this complementarity with the fiscal policy that is powered by the Ministry of Finance, particularly the Minister of Finance. You know, so it's a chain reaction. But it is the same managing directors that will not allow these policies to work. you will see them, nobody look at around now. Excuse me. You will see the managing directors of Nigerian banks. They go in there as managers, from managers, general managers, and so on and so forth. How much was their total take home? By the time they are MDs, give them 1 year, they are trillionaires. How? No, do you understand what I'm saying? You know, and you can look around. You can see, I don't want to begin to mention names, but you can see that something is not adding up. Do you understand that? And how is that happening? It's by manipulating the system. Let me give you a scenario here. I was reading the former central bank governor and later the emir of Kano, Lamido Sanusi. So, you know, he painted a very gory picture of what is going on, what went on during his time that made him to take certain drastic measures. Do you understand that? The bank directors, right, will open purpose vehicle firms, companies, right, and loan money to those companies from taxpayers' money, from depositors' funds. Do you understand that? So you're using your position to trade with the depositors' fund. Yes, that's what they do. So the idea of funding the economy, the agro sector, the manufacturing sector, nobody's addressing all those. That is where we are. And the little foreign exchange you have to enable manufacturers to bring in new machinery and you know, for even the power sector to work and all that, the money is cornered. Cornered by these people. The money is cornered, and the ultimate aim is totally defeated because the real people that would need this foreign exchange can't get it. They are now compelled to go to the parallel markets. You see where the problem is? And the money...
Even some of these bankers will tell you, let me call my allergy friends to
That's
help
it.
you. So
the question is, and you know, because the money, the bureau de change you have in Nigeria, you know, how do they source their funds? It's through the same banks. Do you see the problem now? Through CBN, through banks. So they all work in a chain, you know, in a kind of circle that has engulfed the economy in such a way that all they are there for is to manipulate the system and the process and make as much money as possible at the expense of economic growth and development. That's what has happened to the country. It's not rocket science. Do you understand that? I'll look for that piece written by Sanusi and forward to you. You will understand the picture I am painting clearly. And that is what is going on. So the round tripping particularly is real. And what the directors of the banks, what they are doing, you know, using the depositors' funds to do so many things. You can imagine, you know, the process when they use such to make billions for themselves, they turn around to use the same billions to buy shares in the same banks and become controllers.
So now, do you see this as a step in the right direction?
It is, but it shouldn't stop there.
It should not stop here.
No,
right.
It should not stop there. They need to go the whole hog. There must be a way of getting the banks to really focus on the real functions of the banks, right?
Okay.
You know, banks are not just there to keep a depositors' funds. You know, they need to do something with it. What are they doing with it? Is it to further the nests of the directors of the banks? Or are they actually funding the economy? They are not funding the economy. If they are funding the economy, the 7 out of 10 biggest organizations in Nigeria in terms of business wouldn't be banks. They should have been able to grow or one or two other organizations. And in fact, when you see the other three biggest amongst the first 10 in the pack, they are not even Nigerian-based firms. They are firms like MTN. They're not Nigerian. So is it not a shame on Nigerian banking sector that they have not been able to grow the real economy to the point that one or two firms would emerge as a global competitor? Only the banks are. And it is not like that. You can Google, Google can help you check countries in the West, UK, US, and all that, Germany, and find the first 20. You can only find one or two banks there. And not in the case of Nigeria, where 70 to 80% are banks.
But then let me speak for the banks, and then they will tell
Please
you that you are talking about CSOs. How about some of these banks that do all this either lending or do those stuff that like they build roads or do scholarships and all of that? Isn't that anything to write home about?
The banks, I say, the building roads is just one. The Sukuk arrangement is the Islamic Bank. That's the only bank I have seen that has intervened where it comes to physical infrastructure in the country. That's the truth. And you have brought up something. So why can't banks even build roads like the Islamic Bank is doing? The Islamic Bank, you can see the Sukuk roads all over Nigeria. That's a bank. It's even a non-interest bank. So how many Nigerian banks are imitating the Islamic Bank? Because it's business. You can build these roads and toll the roads and they get your money back. But it will take time. And they don't want that kind of investment. And that's why I said that the government, through the central bank, will have to really introduce an agenda for Nigerian banks. For example, if I were, say, the Minister of FCT, right? If you want me as a minister to approve deposits from FCT government in your bank, this and this and this must be done.
Okay.
Yes. Government will have to sit down with these people and see how they can come in to finance real sector of the economy. I mentioned agro, because as far as I am concerned, Nigeria's mainstay is agriculture. It's not oil. It's agriculture. There are 3 states in Nigeria that will be sufficient to feed the entire Africa. Niger, Kogi, and maybe one more state. Their landmass and the richness of such lands. Do you get the point? And nothing. They are not producing anything where it comes to agriculture. Because there is no intentional policy to ensure that those aspects of the economy are actually attended to. And it will come from funding. Many investors don't have that kind of fund, but they can take the risk as entrepreneurs. That is where the banks will come in.
All right.
Do you understand that? And fund the real sector of the economy. I am recommending that the government, because if you look at it, more than 80% of the money in these banks, they are coming from government. That's a fact. Government should insist on how their deposits should be applied. That is what it has to be. They have the right to do so. The banks that don't agree, you abandon them and move to the banks that agree with the kind of policy you want to run.
All right, great. Dr. Lo, let's move to other stories. Let's stay on security or insecurity, depending on where anyone is, the side of the fence that you stay. All right, we'll talk about the 137 Korega school children that have been returned, and then some other persons before now. They've been the hue and cry with regards to how they've been. Some say it is a release, not rescue, because if they were rescued, it means that there should have been people arrested, bandits would have been arrested, and all of that. but some say it's a release. Okay, whichever way it is. That's one on the side. Then we'll go straight to other stories, and that's on the Okwama killing, and then the Okwama crisis, Okwama Okloba crisis. Blueprint says 24 hours after burial of slain soldiers, DHQ declares Delta Varsity Professor Monarch and 6 others wanted. Even though we saw the Monarch coming out to say that he's innocent. Then we'll take another story, and then that's still on around insecurity. That's tax evasion, Binance, and 2 others to be arraigned by the federal government, even though the Binance executive are even suing the same federal government. Let's get your thoughts. I know there are like 3-fold questions, but I know they can handle it all.
I'll start with the Binance, or Binance, I don't know which now. Nadine Anjawara, has found himself out of the country. Through whatever means, he became a spirited himself out of the NSA detention facility, went through the Nigerian airports, and got his Kenyan passport. He was able to buy his ticket aboard, I think, Saudi Arabia Air and all that. You see, when you talk about insecurity, the case of Binance director Nadine Anjawara should give us an idea of how we even take ourselves seriously. There is no way that man could have left the country if his detention was properly handled. Do you understand that?
Okay.
That is one level of it. Then what happened in Okurama, right? A community where soldiers were killed. It's actually very unfortunate. And the traditional ruler coming out to say that he's innocent. You commit a crime in 2 ways. Through action or inaction. Do you understand that? And ultimately, the traditional ruler of a community ought to know what is going on around him. And if something untoward had been loading, because the group that did that didn't just wake up overnight, did he really play his role as a father of all by alerting the government to what was building in his own community? And I know that there are cases where the community leaders even victims, they flee their own communities and live outside and all that. Yes, that is a measure, and government can see that you are not complicit in any way, that you are even a victim yourself.
Okay.
But remember that before the reprisal attack of the soldiers started, there was 3 to 4 day window, when the military didn't do anything. What did the community
traditional leaders?
He ought to, that was the time to raise alarm. When that happened, you call a world press conference, you raise an alarm. Show concern, and let, in fact, assure government that any way you can help. Do you understand what I'm saying? Show that you are not part of this. Show, the innocence of your own community. I didn't see this. If it happened, maybe escaped my vigilance and surveillance. But before the DHQ would declare him wanted, I don't have the details, but I know that they must be looking at something. The killing was heinous, and the number of soldiers involved, over a dozen. 4 of them officers, a colonel, 2 majors, and 1 captain. It's not tidy. Something is not tidy. If that number of soldiers were killed, and in the way or manner they were killed, and there was no casualty on the other side, it meant that they were not really in that community for combat.
Okay, so sorry I had the button because I had a conversation on one of our sister programs, the conversation with one of the traditional leaders, one of the mayor of Uboland, who happens to be a former militant leader, and he stated that their angst is that they were not informed by the military or the army that they will be visited by some people for peacekeeping. So he was saying that how would you come into people's community without informing the traditional leaders first? Because I actually saw I was trying to look for it, but I saw a particular headline that says that all of this is tied around oil-related matters.
It is.
What are your thoughts on that?
You see, from what that leader, traditional leader, of course, you described him as a former militant leader. He is saying that Nigerian army would have to take permission. Do you see where we are now as a country? We have to take permission from the community before they could visit. Do you get the point now? Is that place now a sovereign entity where you now have to seek clearance from the traditional ruler and all that to approve that Nigerian army would visit? Is such an insult, to be honest with you. And it's marks of how we have really descended into anarchy. You know, you see the Niger Delta militancy, it has been on for over 2 decades and all that. And while it lasted, the way it was handled and everything created more problems than solutions. You know, it created warlords that, you know, have become lords. You know, they have become lords. They can get up and say anything and do anything. They have their own armies, you know. They have their own armies. The other day, I saw a group of militants holding their guns, you know, singing with Sare Dokubo, right? Yeah. Najagaban, Tono, wait for your turn. They were all holding guns, AK-47. In a country where you have a police force, you have a constitution, I think section 124 something, that says there shall be only one police, and you have such private armies armed to the teeth. That is why that person you conversed with, you know, will not have the temerity to tell you that the Nigerian army will have to seek clearance or would have sought clearance to visit a community. You see the problem. So we have verged into what you may call damage control, because the horse has already bolted. You have too many militia groups all over the country, everywhere. Go to the west, go to the east, go to middle belt, go to, in fact, if you go further north, it's even worse, because you now have full-blown terrorist organizations. You know, we have gone beyond Boko Haram now. Boko Haram has now joined forces with ISIS, you know, with Al-Qaeda and the Maghreb, and other splinter groups of terrorists all over West Africa, and indeed Africa. You know, from Mali, Niger, and all that, all converging on Nigeria and the Lake Chad basin. You know, so you discover that you now wonder, you wonder how much of Nigeria as a geographical area is now governed by the Nigerian authorities. Because the entire Nigerian forest from north to south are all taken up by bandits, by terrorists, by killer headsmen. And you move further the forest area, where you have the Niger Delta creeks and so on and so forth. You have dozens of militia groups. I just mentioned that of Asare Dokubo. It's not the only one. There are other generals, in quote, and they have their own armies. And each demanding that Nigerian government must kowtow to their own request. It is what you call shared sovereignty. It means Nigerian sovereignty has been laid on the table and carved up like a Christmas turkey. and people sharing, holding portions. But you see, that's what it is.
Quite sad.
You look at the kidnap of the students. In is it Karuga or something?
Kuriga.
Kuriga, and how they were a manner they were released. It's clear that it was not a rescue.
Oh, so you also saw in
that
line?
No, of course it cannot be rescue. If it is rescue, why are you so sure of even when they will be released, to the point that you have sewn beautiful clothes for the ashwebi for the children within 24 hours? Where does that happen? So there was certainly a negotiation. The only thing is that for me, in principle, as one who trained in counter-terrorism, I will never advise government to admit that they paid ransom. Yes, I will not. It's not good.
When they do.
Even when you do.
Why so?
It sends a very wrong signal. Okay. Two things. One is that it shows weakness on your part. Two is that it serves as motivation for future kidnapping.
Okay.
Do you understand that? So you don't. You simply don't. When they take your soft targets, like they did with the children they took and all that, you discover that they have gotten your underbelly. You have to find a way around it. So over the table, you are, beating the table, and but under the table, it's a different thing you're saying, because the fact is that you don't want these little kids to come to harm, and you can't just sacrifice it. I remember when I was defending my PhD on counterterrorism. One of my recommendations was that the terrorists will have to be wiped out. It was one of my strong recommendations. My external supervisor asked me one question. He said, look, in your thesis, you said there are over 20,000. I said, yes. He said, so you are saying we should tie 20,000 Nigerians to the stake and shoot them? I haven't answered that question to you today. So it's a very big mess. That is why prevention is always better than cure. You don't allow certain insecurity issues to even start at all. Do you understand that? We didn't manage our insecurity well, and that is why the thing now snowballed into what it has become today. If you look at the beginning, the incipients of Boko Haram, that was under Jonathan. Jonathan could have stopped. He could have stopped Boko Haram. When General Azubike Hejirika was the chief of army staff. When they took the tough measures to wipe them out, northern leaders cried out that this is anti-North policy, including former President Muhammadu Buhari. They said it was targeted at depopulating the North. In fact, there was even a petition against the chief of army staff, Hejirika, in ICC. So it makes the government such attitude of any section of the country would make a government to begin to wonder, whether they should really go all out. And it's not just a Boko Haram thing. If you come to the southeast where you have IPOB and all that, there are measures you will take. Igbo leaders will rise and tell you that I want to kill all our youths. So it's a problem.
But shouldn't you actually think about it? Because I remember, like you talked about the ICCDA petition. Yeah. I remember the former governor of Kaduna State, El Rufai, also saying the same thing, that if you decide to go into that massive bombardment of terrorist enclaves, that means you have to, later on you have questions to answer in ICC.
It's a big problem.
So shouldn't you at least think about it too, because of human rights?
That's a problem. But for me, I don't believe a terrorist is entitled to a human right.
Oh, really?
Yes, me. Do you understand what I'm saying? See, Nigerian laws are very clear. You can't form an armed group without authorization. So if you are holding a gun, right, that is unlicensed, I don't expect the soldier or the policeman to arrest you. Should take you out. That's me. That's the way I see it. That's the solution I see. If you are armed, right, you have declared war against the state. So it should be treated you know, you should be seen as an enemy of the state. And if we had taken this pathway, we wouldn't have been where we are today.
Even though human rights does not see it that way.
The human rights will have to be defined in terms within the context of the law. Do you understand what I'm saying? You know, possession of AK-47 by a private citizen, is that an advancement of his own right? Do you get the point? You know, Nigerians are permitted to bear arms, right? Unknown to many, many say the law does not allow Nigerians to bear arms. No, it's not true. The law, Nigerian law, allows you to bear arms. But the arm will have to be licensed. And it has to be within certain range. You don't expect the IGP, the IGO police, to license a military-grade rifle to a private citizen for his own protection. You know, these are assault rifles meant for war. So you cannot claim that you want AK-47, AK-49 for private use in your own house. So if you are possessing such, the army and the police should treat you as an enemy of the state.
So what should you then say to some governors who say that treat the repentant terrorists, they should be re-socialized?
You know, well, you say, I was just telling you about the problem I had trying to defend my thesis, you know, and the question the external supervisor asked, I couldn't answer. And you see, it's a very difficult thing. Many of the victims of terrorism didn't intend to join them. So we are conscripted.
Yes.
You see the problem. It means that there is always that tendency or chance that all the terrorists you see out there are not indeed terrorists. Do you understand what I'm saying? But the question is, how do you sift the real terrorists and you know, and those who are actually conscripted? And psychologically also, some who were unwillingly conscripted also grow to become genuine terrorists. Yes.
True.
Through indoctrination. They are made to really understand the philosophy behind the struggle. So even though they were conscripted, you will see them actually becoming. How do you really separate the wheat from the chaff? I believe it's a very difficult thing. In psychology, there is there are a couple of tests we do, right? That will give you an idea, an insight into the intendment or intentions of such people. One is called the test of Malengering. You know, it simply tries to establish whether the individual is pretending.
Is it pretense?
Do you understand that? That is one test. You also have a problem of recidivism. There are people who would genuinely repent today, but tomorrow they fall back into the same offense. You know, recidivism simply means re-offending. That is, a repentant or an acquitted offender going back to the same offense. Yeah. That's why you see many criminals are in and out of prisons, even though they ought to have been rehabilitated and all. So it's not a scientific process.
All right.
You know, it goes with a lot, so much, and I'm not sure that the Nigerian military are utilizing psychological facilities in what they are doing. I'm not aware. I will ask the leadership of the Nigerian Psychological Association and so on and so forth and see if they are in touch with them. Because they ought to be working with them. I just mentioned some tests that you will have to rely on to even know whether the person is pretending. And the process of de-radicalization is a brainwashing process. It takes a lot.
All right.
You know, it's not something you just do. You know, so the individual, I think it was Shakespeare that was saying that there is no way of showing a man's heart construction on his face. You can't. There is the heart, you see, bellies so much. You know, so there is a in learning psychology, there is what you call reaction formation. showing the exact opposite of the feeling, of your true feeling. So an individual may be a terrorist and pretending and posing to be something different.
All right.
So I'm not saying rehabilitation shouldn't go on, but the process has to be thorough. The process has to be, it has to be comprehensive, it has to be psychological, and more importantly, there must be a measure in place to deal with recidivism. That is going back to the same. Even if it means implanting chips on these people to track where they are. Honestly, these are the kind
in Nigeria.
Yes. Yes, a terrorist, whether repentant or not, cannot say we shouldn't track him. Put a chip there and use the chip to track where he is and what he is doing.
Okay.
And they know when to take him back in.
Most definitely. In fact, I can't wait to see such happen.
For me, every criminal in Nigeria, right, should pass through such process. That's the only way you can deal with recidivism, reoffending. We want to be sure that you were not pretending and you are not going back, because it will become worse. It's not after you are coming to reintegration, rehabilitation, and you gather more information from the society and you take it back to the enemies. And it also doesn't end there. They can form sleeper cells, even within the society itself. And that is why the fight against terrorism is an asymmetric warfare, because the enemy is embedded with within the people. So you can't effectively say that this is who he is. Positional warfare is better, because if it's a positional warfare, the enemy is on the other side, you're on this side, and you do what you can to each other.
All right.
But in asymmetric war, you are embedded, you are living with your enemy.
All right, Dr. Mefor, we've actually spent a lot of time, but then let's take this last one, if you can help us in just 2 minutes.
Okay.
Daily Tribune and Independent says, National Convention, we follow due process. BOT can't take over party, coming from Labour Party. Says, so-called BOT chair and others left party over 20 years. Then we saw that we're seeing this... this tussle, this crisis or in-house fighting happening with either NLC or the Labour Party, their chairman or the president, and then they still conferred the 2027 presidency president candidates to be Peter Obi. In all of this, you still see Peter Obi not attending the convention, INEC saying that we are not in tune with whatever you did. What are your thoughts on all of this?
Any party convention that is not attended by INEC, it's null and void, because that is what the law says. So if you plan a convention and you invite INEC and they have reservations over it, postpone it until you clear with INEC, because it will be an exercise in futility.
So this one is an exercise in futility?
Obviously so. Because INEC has come out to say that we're not aware. And the law says INEC must witness it. That's where the problem is. The law doesn't say that you should inform INEC. The law says INEC should be a witness. So if the witness is not there, can you really say you have carried out that which you intended under the law as clearly stipulated? Express mention of one thing is an express exclusion of another. That is where the problem is. Now, generally, Labour is just going, before our very eyes. First and foremost.
What do you mean by just going before our very eyes?
No, of course, I don't see how they will recover from this kind of crisis. They will splinter. They have splintered already. And again, fundamentally, I have often said that NLC cannot form a political party. You know why? All workers in Nigeria belong to NLC, all, regardless of political parties. So if you go and form the Labour Party, you are indirectly infringing on the fundamental rights of your workers who would want to belong to APC, Labour, PDP, and wherever. It's a problem. Number 3 reason why I opposed the proposal, it was a proposal then by NLC to float a party. I oppose it. I don't know whether it works in other countries, but here with us, I don't see it as a noble idea. You know, one, I have already told you that once you toe that line, you are now depriving the workers of their rights to choose which political party to belong to.
All right.
Right? Ultimately, you will become partisan. Do you understand what I'm saying? NLC will no longer be seen as a union. It will be seen as a political party. And this is exactly what has happened to NLC under Judah Ajero. Remember what they did to him in Imo
State.
They told him he came there for campaign. It's because, NLC is the founding father of the Labour Party.
All right, Dr. Law, we might have to just leave it there. Thank you so much.
They have to retrace their steps. NLC should hands off the Labour Party. They should.
All right, right. Thank you so much, Dr. Law, Mefor media consultant. It's always a pleasure having this discussion with you.
Thank you. The pleasure is always mine.
Great. All right, viewers, that's where we leave for this segment of the show. Let's quickly take our social media videos. And there's a video of a priest who decided to hands off, says he's no longer a Christian. And then we'll take other videos and we'll come to end the show.
Haya, ndio. Kimbia! Ambia huyo akimbie. Kimbia! Umefaulu. Ndio.
All right, we're sorry we could not get that video, but we promise we'll definitely find it and play it to you on probably on Easter Monday. A priest who says that he's no longer a Christian, he's denouncing his Christendom, and then decided to tear the Bible. Well, whatever he thinks he believes, that's fine with him. He has his right to his religion and association. And then we also saw that video of how water, a dry land, and then you see river coming back again. That's to show you that whatever you think or whatever you believe, just know that God exists, and there's nature, there's climate change and all. That's all we'll leave it for today. And my guest who just left this studio, Dr. Law Mefor, today is his birthday. Today is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's birthday, and if it is your birthday today, this is we from KAFTAN Television telling you have a very wonderful happy birthday. And also to our Christian brothers, have a very wonderful Good Friday today. We love you all and we wish you all the best. I'll see you again next time. Enjoy your Easter Saturday, enjoy your Easter Sunday, and of course, we'll see you on Easter Monday. Good morning.